the respected guest as well. Before starting our session, I like to inform you an information passed by Sports Authority of India. That is, we will be having an online examination, and the date and time will be informed for the different sports disciplines as well as sports sciences. So those who are interested to join, you can join for the online examination. Of course, it is compulsory for the SAI employees and SAI coaches. Now today we have the session of rotating with discus and shot put, an introduction, rotating throws, rotational throws. I request Mr. Volker Hermann, our performance director, to introduce Dr. Klose.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, welcome to another session. Today we will discuss about the rotational throws, mainly the discus and the shot put. And I'm glad to have Dr. Klaus Bartonitz with us, supported by our javelin head coach, Mr. Uwe Hohn. Dr. Klaus is a lecturer for Cep Athletics. He's been conducting courses all over the world. He was a successful coach, developing several athletes to world championships. He's been also working as a sports scientist. I think in 1974, he pursued a doctorate degree in sports science. So we are glad to have him around, not only to work with our athletes, but also to share his vast knowledge and experience with you guys. So Klaus, thank you very much for your support, and let's get started.
I'm very glad that we got the possibility to present our ideas about the introduction of shot and discus throw to young athletes, because the javelin thrower should be an all-round athlete. He must also be able to throw the shot, to throw the discus, and even the hammer. So these are some basic for us as javelin coaches, and some basic knowledge we would like to present also for our coaches all over the country and for teachers of physical education who want to introduce these events in their school program. The discus throw came to us by the ancient Greeks and was then introduced in the Olympic program. And it's, I would like to say, an artistic event. It's not just throwing this plate, but it must be thrown in the right way. And about this, we would like to talk now. On the top, you see the different implements. It's not only throwing the discus. Some implements like tires can be thrown. They pull out the arm nicely wide, and it's good to learn the discus throw with such implements. And you see, when you want to introduce it in your school, you need a circle by a diameter of 2.50 meters. It can be marked with chalk on the concrete ground. There must be not a special prepared circle. It can be done on grassroots level on every concrete ground. And for better communication, we introduce such a type of map. Then you can see at the right side a clockwise orientation of the circle, throwing direction facing 12 o'clock, and in the starting position 6 o'clock. And then from 12 we go to 3, 6, 9, and we have the full circle. The blue points marking the feet, with the darker one the ball of the feet. So starting position on the bottom, going into the turn, and then planting the left foot at the rim of the circle for the delivery. On the top, you see from the side how a discus will fly. You will see that the orientation of the discus during all the flight is almost the same. So this has to do because the discus is spinning like a spin for children to play with. The discus rotates very fast with 5 to 10 revolutions per second, and this stabilizes its flight. But nevertheless, the faster it spins, the more stable it will be, And under certain circumstances, you can gain pretty much distance, like I will show now with these animations. The discus should sail at the end and not falling down like a stone. It has to do with the air lifting forces. On the bottom, you see how the discus will fly when he is not spinning. It was simulated by an American scientist, and we figure out it's about 12 meters the discus will lose when he's not spinning. That can happen when the beginner throws the discus. In this case, it may be without 0 rotations. All this has to do with the aerodynamic abilities of this implement, and it can be seen as an airfoil, or as we can also say, as a wing. So the airstream around the discus goes when he has some inclination to the air direction in a different speed on the upper and on the lower surface, and this creates the lift and the drag. In a more colored version, you see the denser streamlines on the top and some lower on the bottom. To explain this complicated stuff, it's very needed, because without understanding the flight of the discus, it makes even not sense to learn the throwing. Because as you have seen, a big difference in a proper throwing discus and a not proper throwing discus. Imagine now we have such a throwing implement as you can obtain for indoor throwings and also outdoors, but it's safer because it is a wooden plate surrounded by a rubber rim. This person has it in the hand, then it's left of this a little bit inclined, and then we look on this implement strongly from the side. If we release this in this way as shown in the picture, releases the moment T1, and then it flies to T2. It flies like a rocket, just spinning. So, and then you will see the air stream that comes from above, hitting the surface of the discus, and the surface is a really small one. And the airstream goes with the same speed on the upper surface and on the lower surface. There is no any lift at this. This is a throwing without using the aerodynamic abilities of the discus. And this is highly not to recommend. It's actually useless. In this case, the discus has a so-called positive angle of attack. The airstream hits it in the same, from the same direction, but because of its inclination, the airstream hits the discus on the lower surface. And the lower surface is a pretty much bigger than in the first case. It will be, in this case, about the double. And under these circumstances, it will create a lift, a force which elevates the discus during the flight. It can be, or it will be positive in the second half of the flight, from the middle up to the end, because then the discus will not fall down so fast. It will sail a while, but not at all at release. When we release the discus with such a positive angle straight from the beginning, it will go high up because of the lifting forces and fall then down like a stone, like this. So this is what we need when we release the discus. It's this case, and so-called negative angle of release. So the airstream should hit the discus from the beginning on the upper surface. It will not allow to travel the discus as high as in the second case, but it will fly much nicer, much longer at the end, the second half of the throw, as you can see in this animation. So wind velocity and its direction can have a really big influence on the distance throw. If the wind comes from front, right side, it would be the best. And from behind, left side would be the worst. So this can be explained by the behavior of the discus during the flight, and the coach will learn and understand this when he throws, but we will not go too much into the thick of the things. So this is the basic what you should know about the discus flies. And when you observe the discus during the flight, you understand what the athlete has done. And that is so important that it makes a difference between medals, between gold and silver. We could analyze 2 throws at the World Championship in '95 in Gothenburg. And the German athlete Ilke Veluta had a not so optimal angle of attack. The airstream came from above, but just under an angle of 5 degrees, as you see on the left side. Während the athlete from Belarus had the optimal negative attack angle of 15 degrees, and this allowed the discus to fly further. At the end, we consider that maybe the gold medal Ilke Veluta, because the release angles 35 and 34 degrees are close to the optimal. So in this case, we can say already that the angle of release, the throwing direction in order of 35, 36 degrees is considered to be optimal, and the attack angle, the airstream from above, under an angle of about 15 degrees. Under no wind conditions, with headwind, tailwind, it changes. We can discuss this if there are questions. It was in 1995, but even at the Olympic Games, there's a similar situation between the Polish athlete Piotr Malachowski and the German Christoph Harting, who was winning gold, but Malachowski has thrown the discus similar to Veluta with a very low angle of attack. It did not allow the discus travel as far as it could. It's just, you see, 80 centimeters, less than 1 meter difference at the level of 68 meters. And we had yesterday evening a meeting, a Zoom meeting. We participated with a coach of the best athlete in the world at the moment, with the coach of the Swede, Daniel Stahl. And he said, improving the release, better using the flight phase, it is one of our goals to go for the world record. In the next 2 years, they want to hit the world record. At the moment, the athlete throws 71.95 meters. So aerodynamic of the discus, a very important issue which should be understood by the athlete and by the coach, based on their educational level from the beginning in simple terms, but with improvement of performances also becoming more and more complicated. When we teach the throw, the feeling for the implement, as you may think, because of the aerodynamics, is a very important factor. So first of all, the athlete should learn how to throw the discus, to bowl it, to roll it over the ground, and then to throw it in the height, making sure that you're not hitting yourself. And as we have shown here in the text on the left side, it has to be released over the index finger, that the discus is rolling clockwise, if you look from the side, and not counterclockwise like from under the hand. No, rolling it over the finger, over the index fingers, and with a long arm. Then we throw the discus in the air, first very short distances, 10, 15, 20 centimeters, and then you can throw up to 1 meter and even more. When you are skilled and can catch the athlete at the discus is falling on the ground, then it should hit with the edge the ground and not turning around. It means the discus was spinning enough. So arm swings with the discus to get a feeling on the fingers, getting used to this centripetal forces, also an important exercise for the beginners to get used with the discus. Left on the top, you see how to hold the discus, and then you can start with some easy exercises with a body weight shift from the right side. I always will address the orientation of the athlete. So his right side, his right side, moving the body mass over the left, over the middle to the left foot, and then back again, swinging up the arm and then moving back as shown in the exercise number 1. Exercise number 1 shows that we step into the middle of the circle, preparing for the turn. The right foot should be sweep wide in a wide radius around and then become planted more or less under the body. And then from this position, which is on the right side, we go also reverse. This is a matter also of reverse learning. In some sports, it makes sense to use this method, reverse learning. It means going back from the final position. So then we go back from the right into the left initial position. And then you combine the number, then you combine it with the 2 and the 3, and it becomes the so-called South African drill. It's already, as you can see, a half turn. Pushing off in the left picture, turning around and go over the right foot, rotating with the right foot until the left foot becomes planted. So this was the overview, and now we see this more in detail. To learn the body shift, the body weight to shift from the right side to the left. And in this case, you should not look somewhere, you should look clearly on your wrist all the time, but this athlete not doing so clearly, but it's necessary not to rush with the upper body and with the head into the turn. The legs should work first, and the upper body has to keep stable with the head. If the head and the side is going ahead, then the upper body will follow, and it's not an effective leg work. To use the legs is one of the main principles, not only in this rows. And from this position, we can step with the right foot out and go in a clockwise way, turning on the left ball always this period of 1 hour, and go around, 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 and into the initial position. For this reason, the body weight must be shifted over the left foot. In this case, we would say it's not really enough. Must be more over the left, that it becomes not a bouncing in and out movement, so that it becomes a smooth turning movement. Very much of the body weight shifted over the left foot. And from this, you can take a wider sweep, go quarters of a, or half quarters of a circle, quarters of a circle, half circle, and finally for a full turn. And it's, who can do then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full turns in order. This can say, yes, I have mastered the basics of the turning on movement. And then you can go straight into the middle of the circle. This is what we here see. And when we landed in the middle of the circle, the right picture, the right leg has to be active. In this case, the young athlete, as you can see, stops there, but he has to land and to work with the right foot, turning the right foot and bringing the hip in. Masterly, this is demonstrated by the 4-time world champion, Russ Riedel. In a competition, before he throws, you can see the 3 pictures. He pops in the hip extremely wide. Starting position left, in the middle, walking from the ankle, bringing the hip in, and on the right picture, he has his hip in when the arm has reached the so-called low point of its trajectory. Because this is all about the radius of the movement. You see in this picture how the athlete is reaching far out with his arm, leaning towards the right side. And it will create a radius in this model of 1.20 meters. But if the legs have not properly worked and then not having the strong support, this may happen with the upper body, and this reduces the radius, in this case by about 20 centimeters. And this Russian scientist, he was a professor of mathematics, and he wrote a book about all the biomechanics of all 4 throwing events, calculated what you can only calculate in 1969. And he calculated that when you have the radius only by 2 centimeters longer with the same leg work, then it will give you 1 meter in distance. And of course, vice versa. If you reduce the radius, like in this case, the angular velocity may the same, but the linear velocity becomes less. You will lose 1 meter in distance thrown by only this little of 2 centimeters shorter radius. This is theory, but the practice shows us this. This is a throw of a young American athlete. You can see she goes from her point of view, bends the upper body to the left side, reducing the radius by a great part. The legs should be proper working in a stable position, then this will not happen. Like in this case, the Cuban athlete, look how fantastically she reaches out and makes the most out of this position. Wonderful. Rolling the discus over the fingers by this extremely wide radius, you can imagine on the upper picture. And on the lower picture, the French athlete got catched at the instant of release. When the discus leaves the fingers, you can imagine that it will rotate clockwise, because the indicating finger then gives the last impulse in the clockwise direction. Stable upper body, long radius, but maybe not as long as it could be. And when you see he releases the discus straight after this, you can also imagine that the airstream will hit the discus on the top surface, so having this negative angle of attack. When we start to work with kids, no matter how old, first of all, we as a coach have to know where we want to go. What is the technical model? Yes, the young athlete, given at a certain abilities and skills, the history of doing sport may have some deviations from this, but we have to know where we want to go, and who can show us this better than the current world record holder, Jürgen Schult of Germany. This was a 71-meter throw, and we can see, first of all, the picture number 1 at the left, a wide stance, clearly wider than the shoulders are. Some athletes stay in a shoulder width, not creating the right rhythm. We need a rhythm of from slow to fast, and this will create a rhythm fast, fast when you stay too narrow. Second picture, shifting the body from his right side over the middle to over the left foot, and turning on with the left into the concrete. I use the metaphor like a screwdriver, turning it into the concrete. Let the right foot stay in this time. It is during this process creating some muscular pretension in the right hip. So wind up the discus pretty far over the left heel. The arm with the discus is swung back over the left heel. Initial stance. The key points for the beginning, and then the body weight shift. If the left foot has done the job, turned on, the right foot is taken off actively. It's not a push, but it's taken off, swung around on a wide radius, and the left foot goes off for the flat jump into the middle of the circle. It shouldn't be a jumpy takeoff. It takes, first of all, too much time. You will land from a high position. It takes too much forces to amortize the landing process, and you will not turn as fast as you could. In the picture right on the bottom, nice to see that he keeps his side back, not rushing into the throw. After landing in the middle in a well-centered position, this picture 9, the left foot sweeps around and lands fast in front of the rim. And the arm is almost in this, we would say, 9 o'clock position. We can have athletes which are then in an 11 o'clock position, but some even in a 7 o'clock, which reduces the radius, the final movement for the implement. And you have a shorter path to accelerate, which means creating a high velocity of release. You need high forces, which in turn increases the risk of injuries because a high load is necessary. The bold arrow indicates the so-called low point, the low point of the discus trajectory. And you can see that he has moved his right hip almost frontal to the throwing direction. So this is actually fully in. After landing, the right ankle is continuing to turn around the body, pushing the hip in for creating as much body pretension as it could. And the release wide rate, as we have seen the athletes before, yeah, it can be also a few centimeters could be gained. So this is in bigger pictures, the full first half of the movement. We can recapitulate the wide stance, swinging back the discus, then the body weight shift and the flat jump into the middle of the circle, landing in a well-centered position, fast planting of the front foot, having the discus far behind, about in this 9 o'clock position, and popping the hip in before the arm hits. The German Robert Hartig with the best result of 70 meters 66. We can even see here some shortcomings in this final hip movements. When we watch these arrows, indicating that at a low point, for example, the throw of Schuld, the hip was more brought in. And when he throws, when he is at the moment of release, you can see hip is not full in. And at this time, even the right knee, the lower leg, drops down by 3 degrees. We should take the power from the ground into the throw. This dropping down means there is a collapsing, there is not power taken from the ground for the final instance of release. The world champion from 1995, because we have a nice sequences and technically she throws pretty good. In this case, we can mention the nice wide swing over the left heel. Then he follows the body shift, and when she lands on the left with the left foot on the circle, her right arm is pretty far. It is clearly in a 9 o'clock position, so she has a final accelerating pass over about 180 degrees, the full turn, the full half turn. To mention the landing on the ball and the active next pictures, turning the right foot around. Now it comes to the release. And when you see the release position, an extremely wide radius based on this stable leg work. So from this, we would like to change to the shot put, having the idea when the athlete has learned the discus more or less, then it's also a good precondition to work on the shot, on the rotational shot, because there are many common elements. It's this, as a result of this, some athletes even compete in the shot put and in the discus throw. In the shot put with the glide and also with the rotational, of course, and then the discus throw, because the leg work has many similarities. The best men of the last year, you can see the top 10, all rotating. There is no one anymore who not rotates. This athlete from Luxembourg, Bob Bertemes, was one of the last who glided, but during the last year he changed. When he reached the 21-meter level with the glide, he changed to the rotational technique, and now he is also a 22-meter thrower. Our tour is the number 34 in the world, close to 21 meter. So, yeah, some elements to improve that for the next years for the Olympic Games. In the women's case, blue are underlined the athletes who are gliding. So from the top 11, it's 4, from the top 10, 3. So the majority is gliding, is rotating. And at the World Champs in 1995, for example, no one of the women was rotating. So they coming up, and you can see that even athletes which are not so tall, over the 1.80 m, 186, like Astrid Gumbernes, these athletes from the USA, only 5 foot 5 inches, 1.65 m, 1.66 m, but great results and with a good technique. So this is also the chance for our athletes. Improving the technique, getting stronger, explosive for the performance development. So as we said, throwing the discus is helping to master the rotational shot and vice versa. And straight from the beginning, it's important to understand that the athlete is not just throwing with the upper body and the arm, but it has to use the whole chain, starting from the ankles into leg, hip, lower parts of the body, upper parts of the body, throwing arm, shoulder, and then the arm with the hands. The opposite to the glide, the location of the shot is a little bit different. That's what the athletes figured out. It has to do mainly with the process of releasing the shot, and the athletes in the spin rotates after this around the body, where the glider is not has not this marked rotating element. So see, putting the shot more under the chin, where the spinner putting the shot more behind the ear, or at least under the ear, as these pictures show. Take the power from the ground. This is the slogan, and this is the principle how the athlete should work. And it's the implementation of the third law formulated by Newton, that action equals reaction. For each action, we need a equal but opposite directed reaction. And this take the power from the ground was set from an athlete, from the little dragon. The Chinese know him as Li Qiaolong, or we know him as Bruce Lee. So he, by his experience, he knows that I must work with my legs first, take the power from the ground. Only this way we can increase the kinetic energy of our body. It was yesterday addressed by the deputy chief coach, the flight parable of the shot. I would like to underline here the main factors for the distance to throw. First of all, it's the velocity of release. It is characterized by its direction, by the angle. This should be optimal, yes, but we should always strive for a maximum velocity by the optimal angle. So in reality, it will be never a really maximum velocity of release. Always a little bit less because I have to watch the angle. And as shown on the top right, the former world records with the glide were reached by mechanically optimal angles of release of 41 degrees. But with the rotational shot put, it looks a little bit different. Almost all athletes throw flatter because of their rotational movement. And the latest data what I have was what we recorded in 1995. You can see 3 athletes, Gardiner, Halvari from Finland, and another American, Barnes. 31 degree for the best throw of Gardiner, becoming world champion. 21.5 meters. Yeah, this is really flat. This steeper throws, the next 36 degree, almost 1 meter less. It's not only caused by the ankle, there must be also some differences in the leg work, how the upper body works, but should be researched by special investigations. But we can only see the best very flat, and the steepest with 41 degree, yeah, it's a big variation during the competition, which is also not such a good thing. Barnes, the only one who you can say, yes, flat, very flat, but almost stable. The 1947, okay, not so good, but the 20 meter throws with 30 degrees and then 30 plus minus 2 degrees. Yeah. Oh. The closer to the mechanical optimum of 41 degrees, the better, but not by losing speed. There is a compromise between angle of release and the speed. We're starting usually with a throw from the stand. This throwing position for the rotational shot put is a little bit different from the glide. You start already in a more upright position, simulating the upper body after landing in the middle of the circle, and then should demonstrate an explosive extending leg work. Like in the discus throw, we have this South African drill, where when you do the half turn and then throw out, have a look. Sweeping around with the right foot, landing in the middle, going with the left foot around, planting down, and extending into the throw. Here I will show a so-called South African in a much more aggressive way. This was the leading athlete of the 70s, Brian Oldfield. He participated at the Olympics, but he came 6th. But then he had a few very huge throws, and only the throw in 1985 became recognized because in the meanwhile he was called a professional. The rules at this time did not allow it, only really amateurs to become recognized. But the 22.19 was for a long time US record. He is extremely fast at the beginning, like sprinting into the circle, hitting fast down, very fast around with the left leg. And from this low position, he can powerful extend his legs. A little bit, a fraction of a second, he will reach this power position, where the body is pre-stretched, very powerful, and muscles, tendons, and ligaments are charged with potential energy, which will be then released when the arm extension started. So a little bit before was the power position, but now here you see he is already off the ground. But this is the moment of release, and see how explosive he worked. The result was that the last years of his life, he has to use a wheelchair because his legs were very damaged. He died in 2017 at a young age of 71 years. It's a legend, and I like to go also sometimes into history to we can better understand what our athletes do today and how we should work. So finally, we would like to introduce the technique model, what we have to go, how we should strive for. See it here at the world champion from the USA, Joe Kovac. He won this competition by 1 centimeter. The second throw, the athlete was 20-90. Can you believe this, of the New Zealand athlete, Thomas Walsh? Again, from his position, looking from his position, finally beginning with the body weight on the left side, going down on the right side, charging the body, and then in the picture number 4, over the middle, on the right foot in the picture 5, taking off the right leg and sweeping it around 6, 7, 8. Far on the right, from this, shifting the body weight by ankle work, screwing it into the ground like a screwdriver metaphor, shifting the body weight during this time, and then sweeping the right wide around. Going off into picture 9, landing centered in the middle of the circle, pushing from the right into the hip, into the body, pictures 11, 12. So this picture 12 would be the so-called power position. And because it's not so good, I got this picture from the side, from front, to better we can imagine what the power position means, why it's called power position. It's the position before the shot leaves the neck and the arm, final arm extension started. Picture 14 is the release, and by the athlete, by Krauser, you can see how the shot releases then the hand. The same technique analysis from the side, where the athlete moves wide around to the right side and then going on the left leg, sweeping the right around, bring it under the body. Under the body, you can see it was more out, and bring it under for a fast turn, like in ice dancing, using this effect of the pirouette, increasing the momentum and decreasing momentum and increasing the rotational speed. Down and powerful leg extension recovery. This we had. Okay, let's go. Forgot to delay something. Sorry. Remind you, explosive leg work is essentially for the rotational shot put. Not only adult athletes can show a pretty good technical model, but we have here a young athlete who changed from the glide when he was 15. He reached 15.22 m, but then he changed, and a year later, he moved further by more than 4 meters. First, he uses a one turn, so he faces the throwing direction in the starting position, but it can be also done in competition. In case of the right foot is not hitting the ground outside the circle, you can do such a swinging movement of the right leg, swinging then into the middle of the circle, turning around and out. And then later, when he was able to manage the 1.5 turn, even technically much better, you see how high he jumped out. And the picture 7, the power position, and then the throw out. So this is a technique model also to use not for young athletes when we introduce the shot. Why not do both the glide and the rotational technique? And this is also provide some fun to the athletes. Like on the bottom line, we would like to present our ideas about the basic fitness level for a young athlete. When you start to work with him or her, teaching the shot put, oh, you have to change, yeah. But it's the same for the javelin thrower. So this we took it from the other presentation. So of course, even the future shot putter needs a good endurance. Swimming, biking, running is a must. Should play different games. And also gymnastic exercises are important for coordination development. And not only throwing the shot, but also the discus, and if possibly also then the javelin and the hammer, and lots of work with medicine balls. Any kinds of jumps, as you have seen how explosive the movement of the rotational shot put is. Yeah. And they have to handle their own body weight before we starting with the barbell work. You say chin ups minimum 6 to 10 or push ups, yeah, 20 and more. It's a minimum. Yeah. There can be big differences when we work with young athletes because of their biological age. This should be taken into consideration. And last but not least, let me tell that safety first. These throwing events are terrorist events. From time to time, some very bad injuries happen. Athletes or officials get hurt by javelin, by discus. By the discus, I heard it myself when one media representative hit into the head with a discus. He died 14 days later. It was a crack. I still can hear it. So safety first. It's how we organize our training. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Klaus. I now just invite Mr. Aditya Maravara, sir, the president of AFI, for a brief feedback on this session.
Thank you, Radha. Thank you, Dr. Klaus. It was a very, very interesting session. We're very pleased that today, again, we have the Vice President of World Athletics and the Chairman of the Development Commission, Jeff Gardner from Oceania, and 4 times world champion, 4 times world indoor champion, 3 times Olympic champion, 2 times Olympic champion, 3 times Commonwealth champion, Valerie Adams is also following this program. Klaus and Jeff, welcome from Oceania. Jeff and Valerie are now on the council. So welcome to any of the coaches who want to join our program and learn a few things. I learned a lot of things today myself. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Klaus.
Yeah, thanks, Adila.
Yeah.
I think we start with the question and answering. In general, I think it's great to see that we have so many coaches who are interested in the throws. And as discussed yesterday already, for India, but also for the other South Asian countries, I'm pretty sure the throws events bear a huge chance to be more successful in the future. Maybe Klaus, the first question, what is a good age to start introducing the discus throw or the shot put with young kids?
As we have shown, at least age 10, not later than 14. But in Germany, the kids doing it already at the age of 8, 9. They're doing little athletics, running, sprinting, throwing balls, throwing different implements like this. I have shown these tires and all this stuff. So age 10 to 12 for serious training.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dr. Klaus, I have a question. Would this be part of kids athletics? Because in kids athletics, there is throwing, jumping, running. So can this be combined with kids athletics?
We combine this, yes, throwing some wheels or some throwing sticks of very light, of a weight of 200, 300 grams, such stuff can be thrown, sling. They're playing also games where they throw the balls. Yes, it can be, should be actually, not only can be, should be.
Thank you, Dr. Klaus.
Yeah, I think in kids athletics they're also using, for example, bicycle tires, wooden sticks. So it's different opportunities to do so. Klaus, there was one question. What is the role of the opposite arm during the release in the discus and the shot put?
Block left side.
Yes.
The left arm should get fixed and supporting the, as we say, the block of the left side. It's turning around the left side when we can imagine that the turning axis goes from the left foot through the leg into the left shoulder. And the left arm can move back, can swing back. That will be a very bad thing. It should be fixed, supporting the stable left side.
Okay. And another question we're having here. Could the height difference, for example, of the different shot putters account for differences in the angle of release?
No. Okay, the taller the athlete, one thing is the taller the athlete, the higher he will release. So, but we know if you can release this 10, 20 centimeters higher, the distance will also be 20 centimeters more. So the height of release is not a point. And no. Both shorter athletes, taller athletes should strive for the optimal what they have. It can be a matter of technique. If the shorter athletes, explosive athletes are more prone to the rotational shot put. It is such a tendency in the world. But this has nothing to do with the angle of release. The angle of release is not a thing which is influenced by anthropometric data.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe you can give some practical advice. How is a thrower able to adjust his technique according to the wind, what you introduced in the beginning? How are you teaching your athletes to adjust their technique according to the angle of attack?
First of all, of course, you should imagine how the conditions are, where the wind is blowing from. First of all, we must say actually the characteristics of the stadium plays a role. It is a closed stadium where you cannot have any ideas where the wind comes from, or if it's an open field where you clearly can say wind comes from front, from behind, from left, from the right side. So this should be analyzed first, and then you know, yeah, when the wind comes from a not so favorite situation, like it comes from behind, I can throw a little bit steeper because the wind from behind will support the falling discus. When the wind comes from front, I must strive for the optimal angle because when I throw very high in the front wind, that it will increase the air resistance. So the left side, the right side, it has a little bit to do how I adjust the discus in my hand during the release. Yeah, it should be by experience, and I would say it will take several years until the athlete becomes very confident with this, and maybe even some elite athletes have problems to do this.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's it for today. If no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. As I informed yesterday, I like to call Mr. TP outside. He's one of the senior coach, also he has trained India already. And even Jumbo, we have also I've seen from the very first day, he is attending this seminar. Is attending this seminar from day one to till. So, he is a senior most coach, still imparting coaching. Like Mr. Bahadur Singh, he is 73 years old. So now I request Mr. TP Ausef sir to give you feedback from the day one to till day. And I think you are here. I am unmuting you, so you can give a brief feedback on the session which we had from 16 till day. Thank you, sir. Ausef sir?
Yes.
You can start, sir.
At the outset, let me express my heartiest thanks to Athletic Federation of India, President Anil Sumariwala, and Dr. Lilith Banot, and Chief Coach Bahadur Singh, Deputy Chief Mr. Radhakrishnan, for having organized such a informative online coaching. And also, I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Sandeep Pradhan, Director General of SAI, and also Dr. LNCP Principal Kishore sir, for the help and care and attention given to get this type of online class in an efficient manner. No doubt, for the last many days, Mr. Radhakrishnan has been the active member as far as the organization of this seminar, this class is concerned. In fact, he is a bridge between the participants and the AFI officials. Let me come to another point. For the last 42 years, I have been coaching, but I never had an opportunity, such a golden opportunity to attend a class of this type, having taken part by the renowned personalities from all over the world, which include Dr. Walker, and also Dr. Mr. Kalaus, and an outstanding personality from Kerala, Sai instructor, Dr. Manilal, all people like that. Most of them are having very depth of knowledge, and they could impart their knowledge in the easiest way to the participants. And also, let me tell you, the classes taken by these experts, I never experienced in my life earlier. I had been attending many seminars, sports seminars, workshops, and things like that, but never I had an opportunity to get this much good information. The areas on which they discussed were very important areas. Areas like biomechanics, training method, and running drills, about nutrition, things like that, very up-to-date matters. The people, those who are attending this course, the coaches as well as the trainers, they may think that I know it all. That's wrong. See, learning is a long process. Till your death, if you are involved in any field seriously, you got to be involved very seriously. And I wanted to give an advice to the participants that you people are lucky to have lucky to listen such a informative and precise class from the renowned personalities. Let me tell you, see, there is no shortcut for learning. See, Mr. Walker has very clearly mentioned what we need is not the quantity, but the quality. It's the right thing. Coaching is not simply coming in, giving training 2 hours in the morning or 2 hours in the evening. No, that's not the one. In fact, off the field, you have to sit very calm and quietly, and you have to refer a lot of articles and videos. And what you call now, it is easy nowadays. The younger generations got the golden opportunity to grab the things through internet learning. Whereas during my youth time and all, we never had such an opportunity. So, what I wanted to tell the participants, see, to understand this, to learn the skill, there are certain important skills which look very simple, but it is very difficult to learn. So you have to learn a lot from the nature. You must have heard about a bird like a duck. See, duck keeps paddling relentlessly below the water, but it looks very calm and smooth over it. There is no shortcut. We say you have to be, you have to have very good knowledge in many areas, for which what we need is what we call a team consisting of very good people. I call it total quality people. Total quality people means the people those who have got character, integrity, positive attitude, what you call integrity, things like that. Now, see, to get a skill learned, you have to strive hard. What we need is not perfection. What we need is excellence, for which you have to work a lot. You might have heard about a person, a great finalist named Fritz Chrysler. Once after a show, one fellow went to him and asked him, "How could you play this violin so nicely? You are lucky. That's the reason why you are able to. You are talented. You are lucky." He said, "No, it is just practice. If I don't practice for 1 month, the audience can tell the difference. If I don't practice 1 week, my wife used to say that difference. If I don't practice, one day even I can feel the difference." That is the importance of practice. So my piece of advice to the young generation participants, you got to focus. Focusing is very important. What I said is not perfection. What we need is excellence, for which now the Sports Authority of India, along with Athletic Federation of India, taking a lot of interest, especially the team, the office bearers consisting of AFIs, very good people having very good sports background. For example, look at Anil Sumriwala. He himself is an Olympian. And the chief coach, he has won 3 times gold medal in the Asian Games. An outstanding athlete. And not only that, even Dr. Lelith Banato and Mr. Radhakrishnan both have represented, both are national athletes. That means with a bunch of outstanding sports background people, ruling at the top of AFI, this is a golden chance to bring some laurels to our country. See, for which, don't go for telling excuses. No doubt we lack a lot of shortcomings as far as infrastructure is concerned. But slowly, slowly it is getting fulfilled. The people those have come from abroad in, for example, Volker, Galena, Klaus, and people like that, I think they have brought the shortcomings of facilities available in India to the authorities concerned. So make use of this golden opportunity and try to improve the performance and let us strive to get a medal in the Olympics. That should be our motto. All the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your feedback. Now, Volker, do you have anything to say and conclude?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Auschef, for the very kind words. It's always a pleasure working with you and with the other coaches, of course. I wanted to address shortly one additional question which has been raised by the participants today. It's about the weights in the different age groups. And as we've previously discussed, of course, we cannot use the same weight of the implements for the different age groups. And as Dr. Klaus pointed it very well out today, the speed of the release is the most important factor when it comes to the biomechanics of the throws. And again, we have very good news because AFI from this season onwards, that means as soon as we're able to host the next JUICE and junior competitions, we're also reducing some of the weights. Yeah, so for all the throws coaches out there, for example, the under 16 girls, they will do the shot put with 3 kg, under 14 girls with 2 kg. For the under 14 boys, the weight of the shot will also be 3 kg. And for the under 16 boys, it will be 4 kg in the shot put and 1.25 kg in the discus throw. And that's all related to a faster release velocity. So we are also trying to adjust to modern sports science, especially in the throws. And we, of course, hope that you got some valuable insight today. I'm pretty sure you did. It was a wonderful session conducted by Dr. Klaus. Tomorrow we'll have a similar session with our javelin head coach, Mr. Uwe Hohn. Thanks a lot from my side. Have a good day ahead, and we see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. And I pass the microphone back to Mr. Radhakrishna. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. And thank you, Dr. Klaus. It was a very excellent session. Of course, I had just given a outline yesterday, but now you have given a very explanated manner of all the biomechanical aspect of shot put and discus. Thank you very much, Dr. Klaus, and thank you, Ausef sir, for your feedback, and thank you all participants, and thank you, Miss Valerie Adam, the world champion, 4-time world champion, and the president of Oceania Athletic Federation, Mr. Gardner. Thank you very much to join with us. Now, once again, I'm informing as the instruction from Sai that there is an examination will be conducted. Date and time will be informed to you. And there is a registration process also. I think I can Google Drive, it is been sent to you all. So if you will be getting a certificate. I know that like Bahadur Singh sir, Ausef sir, they will not be interested to go for an exam now, but for the youngsters and coming up coaches, you can just assess what you learned the last 22 days, 22 sessions with us. Thank you so much. Now I request Mr. Kamal Ali Khan to take over this session. I'm just making you host.